with, hey, what's up, everybody, right? And I was imagining, if you put all these clips together, it would be like, one of those like, oh, hey, everybody, like, one of those cool clips. So it's funny. The thing I do need to figure out is what exactly am I saying at the end of these? But it's all good. You got time. So, so today I wanted to talk to you about how, if you're a parent, this is especially for parents, but even, other people can get value out of this as well. But your kids think that your phone is more important than them. What? Dustin, are you serious? That's crazy. So let me kind of tell you where I learned about this and everything, and so kind of where it comes from. And so some of you may know that I ran my very first challenge that I ever did. It was called Phone Down Challenge. Okay. I probably maybe would rename it now. I'm not totally sure, but anyways, it was a really, really great experience. I'm so glad I could do it. Have you ever done that? Like the very first time you've done something and you feel like it failed and it was horrible or whatever, but you got so much value out of it. And I did impact people and I helped. I think I had 3 people there, right? So very first one. But it was really fun to do it and to put it on. And anyway, but that's not really the point. So the point is though, I put on this challenge, right? And so as part of that, I had to have something to teach. And a lot of times when I work with people to do challenges, it's more around something they've already done, they've become an expert in type of thing. Phone down challenge, like that could be good maybe one day. Just kind of need the audience for it. But there's a lot of things I learned of why that necessarily wasn't the best idea. But as part of doing a challenge, you train, right? You help people learn and get breakthroughs, over a certain, period of time. It can be 3 days, and I've seen them all the way up to 31 days. Wow, I'm like, just like burping or something over here. And so 3 to 31 days, right? And so as part of that though, you're helping people get these breakthroughs throughout the challenge. And you're teaching them, you're helping them, right? And then giving them some assignments and things. And so when I did this phone down challenge, the idea was to really help parents and even teenagers and other people to really understand, okay, hey, right now I am on my phone, right? And I don't necessarily want to do that. And tried to paint this picture of, sitting around the table, like, and you've probably seen this before, right? Like you're sitting around the table with, family or friends or both. You're sitting around the table, you just had some dinner, talking to each other, and the conversation dies down for a second, and then all of a sudden someone picks up their phone, right? They pull it out of their pocket and they start looking at stuff on their phone. Pretty soon another person pulls out a phone, right? And then all of a sudden the entire table is there, friends, family, together, but they're not really together, right? They're not connected. They each have their phone, they're looking at it. And so it's like we're in this connected world, but we're so disconnected, right? And so as I painted this picture and then taught people, about, putting your phone down and about, challenging that idea that, hey, you should have more control over that. I prepared trainings through that. And as I went through that, I found that, I should have looked up the number before, but I thought it was like 53% of teenagers believe that their parents, that they think that their parents' phone is more important than them, right? Isn't that crazy? Think about that. Like that your kids, because you're on your phone, they feel like it's so much more important than them, right? And so, think about times when you maybe had one of your kids come up to you or a friend or whatever, and you're on your phone and they're, maybe you're actually on, probably the best, image of this is when you go to talk to somebody and they have their phone, right? You're talking to them, hey, how's it going? Like, oh yeah, it's pretty good. They look up and they look back down, and then they oh, so, you're asking some questions, you're talking about stuff. And then they look up and they're like, wait, can you say that again? And we've all seen that. You've all lived through that. But it's really important that we don't let technology get in the way of everything else, right? There's a time and a place for it, of course. And I think they're super powerful, and I love technology. I think it's amazing. But let's just make sure that we don't let our kids or other people think that a phone is more important than them. Like that would be like the worst job at all, right? For us to let that happen. And so that's just something I just wanted to point out, is that, you know, it isn't, it's not good. It's not good. And as far as, you know, what can you do to overcome it? I mean, there's, you know, I have a challenge for that. So you should go take, no, but maybe I'll put that back online at some point, or, you know, I do have a group for it, I think still, anyways, but yeah, I think like something that I would say, you know, based on this challenge of what I, you know, taught people is, you know, there's one of the biggest things that stood out to me when I put it on is that you need to really take a look at why you're on social media. Okay. So, you know, is it more of a passive thing or an active thing? Because what's interesting, that the biggest takeaway that I got from this challenge is that it actually isn't as important how much time you spend on social media, but it's more what you're doing, right? So there was a study done and that's what they found. And so that's really interesting though, right? That it's not, because that's what we sometimes think is like, oh, but like they're just on their phone all the time. And so that must be so bad, right? But honestly, it actually depends what you're doing. So if you're being active, so active versus passive is typically, you know, when you're passive, if you're just scrolling, scroll, right? If you're but if you're active, maybe you are scrolling, but you're like, you know, you're being active. You're like, oh, I want to go brighten someone's day. Let me go find someone on here. Oh, cool. That's so awesome. You know, you're commenting and things like that. You're reaching out to people, you're connecting, right? There's this active piece of it. And so that's really the difference between, you know, being active and passive on social media. And so that's what I would recommend for today. And I can do another, you know, little mini training on this at some point if you're interested, but that's just something to keep an eye on, you know, and I know a lot of people use social media for business as well. And so it's not to say that you shouldn't use, you know, that was not part of the training. It's like, oh, you shouldn't use it for business. But again, really look at your intent and what you're doing. Like, are you being active or are you passively, you know, just kind of wasting time? And the other just small tip there too that I'll point out is that, you know, sometimes people struggle with comparison, especially Instagram type of stuff, where it's like, oh, they have the perfect life and everything's perfect and everything like that. It's actually, what's really important to overcome that is to simply make the person real. Like, you know, maybe you actually know them. If you do, that's great. Even if you don't though, try to think about what is their life like? How did they, you know, what things do they worry about? And, you know, just really try to make that person a real person and not like someone that's perfect, because no one's perfect, right, on this earth. And so it's, you know, anyways, that's really what you can do as far as if you are worried or, you know, struggling with doing that. But just my plea to everybody and myself is to make sure that technology is not more important than relationships, right? Because that's really what counts. And sometimes I feel like, you know, when we're connected online, we feel like, oh, it's just so important. I gotta know, I gotta connect, and I gotta do that. But let's just make sure that doesn't jeopardize some of the relationships that we have. So anyways, hope you like this. Share it if you like. But anyways,